What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. And of course, in our most recent episode, we reacted to the New York Giants signing Jameis Winston. But following that news, we are seeing reports that the Giants are still interested in adding another veteran quarterback to this roster. And we want to go ahead and break down what that means for them. Are they trying to win games in 2025, win the Super Bowl, or are they trying to get a stable bridge quality quarterback in here for an eventual rookie in next month's NFL draft? And today is the Miami Pro Day, so Cam Ward speaking with Joe Schoen, Brian Dable, and the rest of the Giants contingent. Meanwhile, the Tennessee Titans sending just about everybody in their building to go speak to and watch Cam Ward at his pro day. So we're going to go ahead and react to all of the news surrounding the New York Giants and their quarterback position in this episode and have a good discussion on whether or not it makes sense for the New York Giants to continue pursuing Aaron Rodgers / a Russell Wilson potentially. There's still some mixed reporting on whether or not they're interested in him, but at the end of the day, the baseline takeaway here is the Giants still want to add another veteran quarterback. Does that mean they don't want to draft one, or does that mean they want to draft one later on in the NFL draft outside of the first round? We're going to go ahead and dive through all of those different discussion points, but before we do, Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? And how are you feeling about all this news that keeps circling around the New York Giants and their quarterback position?
Doing pretty good, man. I mean, listen, it's a muggy day out in New York, raining and cloudy. Definitely feeling those vibes today, but the Giants still waiting to see what happens in the free agent quarterback market. A little bit of reports kind of bubbling to the surface regarding, their interest in. Obviously, Rodgers seems to be the most, I guess, I wouldn't even say realistic, but the one that they want. He's the player that they want. It's been no secret. I'm starting to get less inclined that they want Russell Wilson because I think, there was a report that came out today saying that they wanted Jameis Winston for the locker room presence and they thought he'd be a better locker room guy than Russ. And, maybe that's true, maybe that's not, but do they pivot from Rodgers to Russ? That's the question that I have at the moment. Are they willing to wait? Is that what they're willing to do? Is that what they want to do? They're waiting to see if Rodgers is going to go to the Steelers. I know, Peter Schrager, who is really good buddies with Joe Schoen, came out today and said the Giants are still in on Rodgers. And he went to the Steelers for 6 hours. Nothing came of it in terms of a contract, but he was doing his due diligence. The entire league is waiting on Rodgers again, and it has been like that for a couple weeks now. So we're just kind of waiting to see what he does. Maybe he waits until after the draft for all we know, and he just tries to see what teams end up taking a quarterback, because maybe the Giants went up to him and said, well, we're not sure what we're going to do. We might take a quarterback. Maybe the Steelers said, yeah, we're not really sure. We might take a quarterback like a Jackson Dart later in the first round. Who knows? Like, there's so many different things that could happen. The draft could answer a lot of those questions, and the teams that are left without that quarterback, now you have a smaller group, and Rodgers knows where he can go. That will, he'll be the starter. He won't be asked to be a bridge and teaching somebody else. It'll be him, and it'll be his offense. So maybe that is something that he's willing to do. He's just waited out. But if you're the Giants, there's other reports suggesting that, well, they could pass on a quarterback at 3 altogether if they were to get Rodgers, and then they can go get another veteran free agent. Even Russ could enter the fold in this equation. They have Russ or Rodgers, and they have Jameis Winston, and then they go BPA at 3, and they take a Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter, and then they wait to take a more developmental option in the mid rounds. And Anthony, you're a big proponent of this. Like, even if they don't get a quarterback at 3, like, take a shot on a guy in the mid rounds. Someone with some potential, someone with some upside, and a lot of people will point to Jalen Milroe is a guy that has an elite trait in that rushing quality. There's other quarterbacks. They're not like altogether. They're entirely inspiring options, but there's some guys with some decent traits that the Giants may want to invest a little bit of time to develop. And like, worst case scenario, it's a shot. They have an extra 3rd round pick this year, so like, they could take a shot and they can turn around 2026 and say, well, we didn't draft one in the first round last year, and we have a lot of young talent on cheap contracts. Now we're going to sell the farm for the guy that we think is the best option. Now, we don't know what it's going to look like. Drew Aller, obviously Greg Nussmeier. Like, there's tons of different quarterbacks next year. So we'll see who bubbles to the surface, who has a big season. And, the consensus is that there'll be more first-round graded quarterbacks than this year. We just don't know how high they will rise or what their stock will look like, if you fast forward a little bit. But we loved what we saw from Nussmeier in small doses. Like, if he puts it all together and has like a really good season for LSU, he's going to be a number 1 overall pick next year if he really puts it on. Like, he has that type of talent. So, Aller's the same way. He's got that size, that frame. He's going back to school. Obviously a lot of work left to be done there. So if he puts it all together, he's going to be a top 5 pick for sure. So, there's a lot of different quarterbacks in the future. Giants can take a shot in the mid rounds, not compromise that ability to go turn the page in 2026 and draft another guy in the first round. So, Anthony, in the context of getting another free agent quarterback here, that eliminates the need to go with a quarterback at 3rd overall and allows you to just get the best player available. Do you think that that's something that the Giants are probably thinking right now?
Yeah, I think so. And I want to speak, more broadly to the idea of bringing in Aaron Rodgers. I think that, we had that discussion in our last episode about Jameis Winston, and there were a lot of Giants fans who were responding to our discussion saying, no, Jameis Winston is the bridge. He's going to be the starter until the rookie takes over this year. And I was pretty much adamant that that's not the case. Jameis Winston signed a backup quarterback contract because he is a backup quarterback, and that the Giants are going to continue trying to sign whether it's Rodgers or Wilson. I think, Alex, what it's coming down to is the Giants have signed their backup quarterback. Now they want to sign their starter in Aaron Rodgers. And if they can't get Aaron Rodgers, I still think they're going to go after Russell Wilson because they feel that he is a viable starting option. That's why they had him in for the meeting. That's why other teams have had him in for a meeting. Now, what's the holdup? The holdup is Aaron Rodgers. We don't know how long it's going to take for him to make his decision. But what I will say is he could wait until after the NFL draft, and so could Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson could just continue to wait. Maybe he's like, okay, you know what? I kind of want to go back to the Steelers, but I can't do that until I find out what Aaron Rodgers is doing. So now all of these quarterbacks could just wait until after the draft, once the dust has settled, once we know where Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart, and Jalen Miller are playing. Then the New York Giants can move forward after some of these quarterbacks start making decisions after the draft. That could be what happens. So Aaron Rodgers' watch has been going on for 2 weeks now, and it could be going on for another 4 weeks. It could be a whole nother month until Aaron Rodgers makes his decision. But the New York Giants do feel like they're in a position to win some games this year. They feel like they are a quarterback away from being competitive, and they proved that in some ways over the last 2 years. They were 3 plays away from being a winning football team in 2023, and in 2024, they had 8 one-score losses, one-possession losses. If you have a better quarterback in there, you flip the script in several of those games. Maybe they're more of a 7-win team than a 3-win team, so then maybe they are technically competitive. I think that's what the New York Giants are looking at here, and that's why they're so adamant that they want to continue to pursue a veteran quarterback who could start and win games immediately, and that would be Aaron Rodgers. Meanwhile, Jameis Winston signed a backup quarterback contract. You do have to keep in mind, all Giants fans, Jameis Winston signed a 1-year, $5 million deal last year for a team that had Deshaun Watson. I don't see why Giants fans feel like Jameis Winston can't be a backup to Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson when he was literally just a backup to Deshaun Watson entering last season. He is a backup quarterback. I don't think the Giants view him as their week 1 starter. I don't think they want him to be their week 1 starter. I think they just like the upside that he provides as a backup and his qualities as a locker room guy. The thing with Russell Wilson versus Jameis Winston, Alex, where we're talking about their locker room persona and ability to contribute positively in that energy, I think that Jameis Winston absolutely brings a good energy to the locker room, even as a backup or starter. It doesn't matter. Russell Wilson will only bring that energy as a starter, and the Giants aren't sure yet what they're going to do at the starting quarterback position, so they're going to wait on Russell Wilson. But Jameis Winston just gives them a good quality presence in the locker room as a backup, and I think that's what that is. But speaking to your other point in the question that you asked me, with Jameis Winston, he could be a bridge potentially, even though I think he's just a backup. But I think that if the Giants do end up landing in Aaron Rodgers, they will go best player available at number 3. I think that's what makes sense for them. If you don't want to over-invest and be short-sighted and skip over other positions of need, I think, if you're Joe Schoen and you need to win games in 2025. So if they do bring in Rodgers and Jameis Winston is his backup, which makes sense right there, yes, they still need to bring in a young quarterback because that is an old quarterback room, but I don't think they bring in a Shedeur Sanders or somebody else at number 3 overall. Like I said before, Alex, in our other episode, them bringing in Jameis, them continuing to pursue Rodgers and Wilson, it's because they don't know if Shedeur Sanders is even going to be on the board for them. We don't know what Cleveland's going to do. Every time I watch something about the NFL draft and predictions, insiders, everything, Everybody seems to know what the Titans are doing at number 1. It seems like they're going to take Cam Ward. Everybody seems to know that the Giants want to take the next best quarterback at number 3. Nobody knows what the Browns are going to do. Are they taking Shedeur Sanders? Are they not? The Giants don't know that themselves, and that's why they brought in Jameis Winston, and that's why they still want to bring in Aaron Rodgers, because they don't want to bank on Shedeur Sanders being there at number 3, and then all of a sudden he gets taken by the Cleveland Browns and they get the short end of the stick. They don't have a quarterback of the future, nor do they have a starting veteran quarterback for the 2025 season, not named Jameis Winston, which is not what they want. So that's what I think this is all about. Hedging their bets and making sure that the Browns don't ruin their draft night plans. And if the Browns do ruin their draft night plans and they're not able to get a quarterback at number 3 overall, they will get one in the middle rounds of the draft, in my opinion. But that'll be a developmental piece that won't stand between Aaron Rodgers and the starting job at any point in the season. It would be a sit and wait. You got to sit the full year, redshirt your rookie season, and maybe take over in 2026. That's what I think is unfolding here for the New York Giants at their quarterback position. Now, I know you might see it a little bit differently, Alex, but that's how I see it. Jameis Winston was signed here just to elevate the floor for the backup quarterback position for the Giants, and now they're still looking for their starter, and they're going to look for their long-term solution in the NFL draft.
Yeah, I think like looking at it now and looking at Jameis Winston, he gives them options. And I think that's kind of what the Giants have been trying to execute this whole offseason is like, how can we expand, it's our situation to have as many options as possible. Whether it be getting Matthew Stafford and saying, well, we could still draft a quarterback and he can be the backup and, he'll sit worst case scenario. And the truth is like that Colts game really compromised their ability to make the only decision that was the right one, and it was to go and get the best quarterback available. Now the Titans are like realizing, Cam Ward's the best one in this draft class, and they're going to take him most likely, unless barring some unforeseen trade. But I mean, the Giants and the whole brass being down there right now, is it just due diligence, or do they really feel like there's a shot? Do they really feel like they could whip a trade out the last possible second? What do you think about that? Because like they got the whole brass down there right now. Are they just preparing? And I understand, they're preparing for any possibility and whatnot. They've probably seen more than enough Cam Ward at this point to know what they feel about him. But do you think that they feel there's even a shot? Like, because he's not slipping past 1 or 2. Like, he's going number 1 most likely. It's just a matter of like, are they willing to sell the farm for him? Are the Titans even willing to accept the farm at this point? And that's kind of where it's like, I'm not sure exactly what the point is of going to send the whole regime down there just to not be able to get him.
Well, what if in 4 years from now he's released from the Tennessee Titans and he's a free agent, all these guys still have their jobs, and they want this due diligence? That's what the Giants always say every offseason. They send everybody to these quarterbacks because the quarterbacks are the most important players in the sport, and they want to have a scouting profile done up on them now and when they finish their rookie contract. So I think there's still value in doing this due diligence for the reasons that the Giants have explained in the past and the reasons that I think are still pretty readily apparent. Now, whether or not we think the Titans have a inkling of interest in trading down doesn't really matter, because you just can't put your faith into another team and just hope for the best. Like, you have to, well, actually, you do have to hope for the best. You have to hope that you have it wrong. Okay, we think the Titans are going with Cam Ward. What if we're wrong and we do have an opportunity to draft him? We do have an opportunity to move up. The Giants don't know anything. They just think things the same as we do. It's all speculation because all these teams are keeping their plays close to their chest. So I think that's kind of where you look at it from the Giants' perspective. You got to keep doing the due diligence at scouting. You have to imagine that you do have the opportunity to land Cam Ward. And what if the Giants are deciding, hey, maybe if we continue to scout him and we uncover the fact that we think he is a franchise quarterback, we'll ship off 2 additional first-round picks. We'll make sure that the Titans can't say no to our offer. Maybe that's what they're contemplating. You never know. So I think that the Giants sending everybody there is wise. Plus, there's also the fact that it's not just Cam Ward's pro day. There are other players at this pro day that they are meeting and interviewing with. Xavier Restrepo being a player that you really like, Alex. Maybe they think that he is a perfect fit for them in the middle rounds of this draft. And they don't only want Mike Kafka to speak to him, but they also want Joe Shane and Brandon Brown and Shea Tierney and other guys in the room to go speak to Xavier Restrepo and other guys. Damian Martinez is their running back, who's really talented, and he might be an intriguing option if he falls into the 4th, 5th round of the draft for the Giants as a best player available selection. So It's not just Cam Ward that they're there for. They're there for other players, which I think is important to note. And also the fact that we just don't know what the Titans and Browns are going to do. Even if we think we've got a good idea of it, we don't know what they're going to do. So we better have this Giants team doing its due diligence, especially when you consider the fact that the NFL is such a strange and ever-changing landscape that Cam Ward, yes, could be a Titan for the next 2 to 3 years. What if he ends up on the trade block the same way Justin Fields did 2 years after his rookie season? The Giants are going to want to make sure that they had a full scouting report done on him that they can use to translate to his pro scouting report in a couple of years' time in case he does end up on the trade block. So I think all of those factors need to be considered.
Yeah, I think that's a very solid take. And yeah, I think that's probably exactly what they're doing, just gathering information, preparing for any possibility in the future, whether it be the next month or 2 years from now. I mean, Will Levis is another good example of Titans about to replace him right now. And he's been in the team for 2 years, and now they're already turning the chapter. So, I do think that if you're the Giants, it's just preparing for any possibility. Now, it's interesting because, everything the Giants have done this offseason feels like it's been meant to win football games with a veteran quarterback in place this year. They struck out on Stafford, and they struck out on Rodgers. I mean, we're effectively on plan C right now if they lose out on Rodgers, which is the betting favorite is that the Steelers get him right now. And I think that's probably where what's going to happen. That leaves you with Russell Wilson, who would be plan C. If they don't end up going with Russell Wilson, now you're on to plan D, which is Jameis Winston and a rookie quarterback at 3, if you even manage to get one. And obviously right now, we don't know where Sanders is going to go. It's like he could either go at 2, he could go at 3, or he could go at 20. Nobody really knows where he's going to land in this draft class and what teams really feel about him. He could cascade down the board if a couple of key teams decide to pass and they don't see that level of talent. But, I do think that because he's one of those two players in this draft class that has that type of potential, he obviously will go higher because he's a quarterback. So we'll see how things materialize moving forward. But is there any developmental guys to you? Now, we're kind of starting to hear Jalen Milroe's a 3rd round pick. That's what some people are saying now. Is that a guy, I know you've liked him in the past. Do you think that with that extra 3rd round pick, maybe the Giants want to take a stab at a player like that? If the cards fold that way, do you think that's something the Giants would consider?
Yeah, it is. And I know you probably saw me roll my eyes there. I'm going to roll my eyes not because of anything that you said, but because of this narrative that Jalen Milroe is rising up draft boards because of his pro day. And this is what I need to say. We already knew Jalen Milroe was really fast. Him running a 4.37 40-yard dash does not change the fact that he is really fast. That was expected of him. He is not flying up NFL teams' draft boards because he ran a fast 40-yard dash. Everybody knew he was going to run a fast 40-yard dash. If anything, the fact that he actually ran the 40-yard dash only tells you that maybe he's got a really low draft stock. It doesn't prove that he has a higher draft stock than expected. It proves that he has a lower draft stock than expected, because if Jalen Milroe felt confident about where he was going to be drafted, he wouldn't have needed to run that 40-yard dash. So I actually don't think that he's this bona fide rising up draft boards 3rd round draft pick. I think that he is a 3rd round draft pick, in air quotes, because if a team like the Giants has filled a couple big needs with their first 3 picks, and now they have this compensatory pick that they can and are willing to burn on a quarterback, then Jalen Milroe can be a 3rd round pick. But if people think that because he ran a fast 40-yard dash, now all of a sudden he's a 2nd or 3rd round pick, but meanwhile a week prior he was a 6th round pick, that's not how that works. That's simply just not what it is. But if the Giants, because they just have been gifted an extra draft pick, want to burn it on an extra player that they didn't initially plan on drafting, that could be Jalen Milroe at number 99 overall, and that's where you would feel comfortable reaching, because that draft pick, again, was essentially a gift from the NFL. So, I don't know. I think that Milroe has a lot of... Obviously, the traits are amazing, the athleticism and all of that, but this is a player who does need a complete reworking of his mechanics and fundamental throwing abilities. And the New York Giants as a team do not really have time to wait for that. Now, that is unless they end up signing Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is going to want to start all 17 games this year. This is why I think he's going to wait until after the NFL draft. If the Giants sign draft Shedeur Sanders, Aaron Rodgers isn't going to want to be on this team, because he's going to know that Shedeur Sanders, yeah, maybe Rodgers is the week 1 starter, Sanders is a week 17 starter. I don't think Aaron Rodgers wants to be in a situation like that. However, if he waits until after the NFL draft and the Giants end up drafting Jalen Milroe at number 99, as you maybe just suggested, yeah, I think Aaron Rodgers feels comfortable signing on with the New York Giants, knowing Jalen Milroe's not going to play this year. I'll be the week 17 starter. I'll play into the playoffs if I get us there. Jalen Milroe maybe starts in 2026, maybe 2027, but he's not going to play in 2025 unless I get injured. So that's why I think Aaron Rodgers is going to wait until after the NFL draft, although that could change. Who knows when he signs, but I think he's going to wait until after the draft. But for Milroe, that is truly the player that you want in a sit and wait and see situation with a Rodgers. You're not going to want to get Jalen Milroe in the starting lineup anytime this season, in my opinion. He completely needs to rework his fundamentals. And for what it's worth, though, I think that Brian Daboll is kind of the right guy for him. Brian Daboll took basically a very similar prospect, obviously a much better prospect than Josh Allen, but similar strengths and weaknesses, as I've said before. Very strong arm, very fast, and great gifted runners of the football. But they have a strong arm and they don't know how to use it because they don't have those mechanics to throw the ball. That's what Brian Daboll took with Josh Allen, turned him into a star. So you could see some overlap in their strengths and weaknesses and say Milroe plus Daboll might be a match made in heaven, but that is a wait and see situation. I really just don't think you want to see Milroe in the starting lineup early. I think more realistically, Alex, if the Giants do miss out on Sanders, let's say he goes off the board at number 2 and the Giants are there at number 3, I think they take the best player available, whether that's Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. Hopefully they do sign an Aaron Rodgers or a Russell Wilson in that situation, and I think that they would target Jackson Dart because not only does he have the ability to be a wait and see, a sit and then eventually start kind of guy, but if you need him to play this year, like maybe the Giants have had a lot of injuries recently. Maybe Russell Wilson gets hurt and Jameis Winston gets hurt. I think that you could feel comfortable putting Dart in there and just running a very simplified offense for him. Meanwhile, I don't think you can feel that level of comfortability with a Jalen Milroe. So I think Jackson Dart would be the guy that the Giants like. Or if you want to go even further into the draft, into those middle rounds, Will Howard played in an offense that just won a national championship. He's got the experience. Maybe he could start as a backup as early as his rookie season. So I think there's a lot of options for the Giants to consider. But again, at the end of the day, I think it's really just going to depend on what Aaron Rodgers decides. If he wants to be a Steeler, then I think it doesn't matter. If he wants to be a Giant, then I think they have to reestablish what they want out of a rookie quarterback in 2025 and beyond.
It's certainly a lot to figure out who exactly that player is going to look like, what's going to be. Like you mentioned, Dart could be someone they're interested in. I know Deion Sanders just said like an hour ago that they're hoping that Shedeur gets drafted to New York. Like verbatim, like we hope he goes to New York. I don't know. I hate, and I know like the Giants probably won't take that as gospel. They won't factor that into their equation that he wants to be in New York. Like most players want to play in New York. It's the biggest stage, for the most part. I mean, even though we haven't been very good for a couple of years, everyone wants to save this team. Everybody wants to be the hero, especially a guy like Shedeur Sanders who, has a chance to go to. I mean, if I was a Browns fan right now, I'd be kind of pissed. You know what I mean? I'd be like, we need a quarterback, and what if we really like Shedeur Sanders? And he and his dad were like, yeah, I don't want to go to the Browns. I don't want to go to Cleveland. I'd be kind of like that's a, I don't know. Is that problematic for you that they're saying stuff like that? Like, if you were not a fan of the Giants, you were a fan of the Browns, would that be a turnoff for you? Would that be a red flag for you? That he was basically saying, I don't want to go there. Like, I want to go to this team.
Well, he didn't say that he doesn't want to go to Cleveland. He just said that he wants to go to the Giants. And again, I think this is another instance, as I've said before, of us being Giants fans and having a Giants fan algorithm. Because I bet you probably didn't see that just last week, Cam Ward said it would be a dream come true to be drafted by the New Orleans Saints. So this happens with all of these prospects. They always say, I want to go here, I want to go there, I love this place, I think that coach is great. And certain fans of those teams run with it. They get really excited. Oh man, maybe we're going to get him because of this quote. It doesn't matter what he says. It doesn't matter what Deion says. It doesn't matter what Shedeur says. It only matters what the New York Giants say behind closed doors on draft night. We want to draft this guy or we want to draft that guy. That's all that matters. I don't think that the Browns care about what Deion has to say because Deion isn't Shedeur. Shedeur is his own person. He's going to make his own decisions. And whether or not Shedeur decides that he wants to be in Cleveland, it's not even up to him. Cleveland can just draft him anyway, unless they're going to pull the Eli Manning thing, which I truly don't think is on the table for the Sanders family. Why? Well, he's not a top 20 ranked prospect on anybody's draft board. Very few and far between are you going to find any of these analysts, insiders, and scouts that actually have Shedeur ranked near the top of the draft, in the top 5 prospects in the draft. Those are the guys that have maybe the autonomy and the ability to do what Eli Manning did. Other than those guys who are ranked all the way at the top, I just don't see how a guy who's ranked, say, 40 on Dane Brugler of the Athletics big board, how does he have the power to say where he can and cannot go when he's drafted number 2 overall, when that in perspective of his ranking is a blessing for him to have been reached upon and taken that early. So I think that Sanders, wherever he says that he wants to go, wherever Dion says he wants his son to go, it doesn't really truly matter because the team is just going to make the decision and pick him. And if that's the Browns, so be it. If not, then yes, maybe they'll get their wish at number 3 with the New York Giants. But even that, I don't think is a guarantee because the fact that the Giants are so eager to bring in a starting quarterback right now and looking for an Aaron Rodgers and comfortable taking a developmental prospect in the middle rounds doesn't necessarily tell me that they don't think Sanders is going to be there, but maybe they think he is, but they really don't want to have to draft him. So I don't know. Yeah, maybe Dion really wants to be in New York. New York might not want Dion and Shedeur, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, like I was saying before, everything the Giants have done has felt like they've been positioning themselves to try and avoid taking a quarterback at 3. I mean, ever since, they don't have the first overall pick, and I'm sure they don't want to trade up and use future draft capital, sticking them picking at 3, it just feels like they don't want to do it. They Matthew Stafford, Rodgers, like that, those players give you the option to say, no, I don't want to do that. I can go with Travis Hunter or Carter and feel good about it at the end of the day. I can go get hopefully a perennial Pro Bowler pass rusher or a guy who can fill, 2 major needs for us. I wouldn't say cornerback's a major need right now, but, having a superstar receiver next to Neighbors certainly isn't a bad thing. And if you're Rodgers or you're Russ or you're Winston knows how to maximize his receivers. Like, that's one thing that he's always been good at. Dude feeds the rock and he throws risky ass throws, but he gets the ball out. We've seen Daniel Jones just stand there like a statue half the time and not even throw it. He just drops his eyes and the play's dead. Winston always is trying to make something happen. That's why he throws so many picks. He's always throwing the rock, even when under pressure and under duress, and even if it's a bad decision. His receivers are going to get targets. Like, that's what we do know about Winston. Hunter and Neighbors, you put Russ in that equation too. Like, in terms of the screen game, it's going to be electric. The downfield offense, electric. Rodgers, he can do a little bit of all of that stuff, whether it's the intermediate, the short, screen, and deep. He's going to be able to maximize those guys. So it's exciting, and also it positions you in a really good spot if you do get a developmental quarterback and you do like that developmental quarterback and you give them a chance to play at some point. They're going to walk into an offense with 2 of the best young receivers in the sport. Or if you sell the farm in 2026 for a quarterback, they're just Giants are bad and they land a pick that's even in range to get one. They get to draft a quarterback and say, hey, buddy, you're not walking into an offense with I don't know, like Osborne or like Keyshawn Boutte in the freaking as your receiver in New England right now. You're walking into an offense that has Travis Hunter and Malik Neighbors and an offensive line we've been working for years to solidify and build, and we have money to spend if we need to, and draft picks. That's not a bad situation to be in. And that's probably what I would be selling to myself if I was Joe right now. I'm like, if I can win enough games at the vet to save my job, get the best player available at 3, in this instance, I would go Travis Hunter, and then draft the quarterback, you have a very young, potent offense that is ready to inherit a young quarterback that needs time to develop. Because young quarterbacks need a lot of structure, right? You can't throw a young quarterback into a bad system and expect them to thrive. It's not going to happen, right? You need to have good playmakers. You need to have good protection. You have to have good coaching. We know that Dable can coach well on offense. We know that Carmen Brasil is a good offensive line coach. We saw it before the injuries last year. We know Neighbors is a superstar. We know Travis Hunter can be a superstar. You know what I mean? If you have an offense and they take a step forward this year, a little bit more cemented, solidified, and they win enough games, they retain their jobs, like in a perfect world, you're able to get that quarterback and inject it into an offense that's really has a good foundation, and like then you have a better chance at long-term success. So like that's where I look at it and say that's a possibility for the Giants right now based on how things have unfolded up to this point. Previously, I was like, go get Cam Ward. I don't think they even can anymore. I don't even think it's possible. So I'm not even really factoring that into my takes nowadays. But if it's between getting Russ or Rodgers and Sanders and Travis Hunter, I'm trying to get the best free agent quarterback I can, and I'm passing on a quarterback in the first round altogether, and I'm getting Hunter, and I'm looking at 2026 to get that quarterback that has the most possible upside, even if he's trading up for one, because our offense is going to be ready for that. And that's kind of how I would pray and hope that things materialize. And it still doesn't deter you from taking a developmental piece this year. and trying to see if they have anything in the tank and maybe any upside that they, maybe they take to the coaching and training camp and throughout the season.
It's kind of amazing you've come full circle and you've now joined me on my side of the fence where I was saying the Giants could, for the next year or so, build a good team. Then in 2026, plug a quarterback in and make themselves a great team. And that's why I was in support of Matthew Stafford. That's why I've been in support of Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson, because I think that's what the Giants are trying to do. And that's pretty much what you just laid out there, Alex, even though you disagreed with me initially.
I'll say this.
Around eventually.
I was unsure at the time if we were going to be able to get Cam Ward. And now that's totally off the table, which does change things for me. I've never been a big Sanders guy, so I was always okay passing on him. But at the same time, I was also scared. I was scared about this. More so, Stafford's exponentially better, in my opinion, than Rodgers and Russ, right? So, we would win so many games that, to go get a quarterback next year, you're probably mortgaging for two future first-round picks to go get that quarterback that you want, most likely. In this instance, I'm a little bit more okay, I can see it because, I don't think if we stick with Winston, if he starts games, we're probably not winning that many games. Even Russ, maybe we'll win 6-7 games. We're still within range of, getting a quarterback, or trading a future first-round pick. I think Stafford, he was a multi-year thing, though. I don't even think we needed to draft this. If we were to get him, you don't even really need to draft one. It just kicks the can down the road, obviously. But it just, the offseason's so many twists and turns so far that have really shaken my opinions. But Ward not being available really kind of hurt my strategy to at least turn the page and have a guy with high upside. I just don't love anyone enough to take a shot right now.
Yeah, Ward not being available obviously does change things and recontextualizes everything for the Giants. But the one thing that I'll say is I don't really care about, the future 2027-28 draft capital. Looking ahead, I would rather the Giants do win games this year. I'm not in the mindset of I want to have a top 10 pick in 2026. No, I really don't want a top 10 pick in 2026, Alex. I don't want to watch this team go through another 5-win season. I would hopefully see them win 8 games at the bare minimum. Yeah, maybe now they're picking 20th, and maybe they're out of range to draft a quarterback. Okay, F it. Trade 2 first-round picks and then go draft a quarterback. That's what the Chiefs did. That's what the Bills did. That's what all of these other great teams that became super teams did. So I'm not caring about 2026 drafted picks and 27. Man, I just want to see this Giants team get good. And if Matthew Stafford or Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson makes them watchable this year and competitive in December, okay, then I'm happy. And I'll worry about the draft way later on. And yeah, I'll be willing to trade up with those future draft picks because that's when you use them. Once your team is good, that's when you mortgage that future on a player. And the Giants will be in a position to mortgage their future if they win some games and build a good roster this year and next. So that's kind of my mindset on it. So I think that fans need to be careful not to be so comfortable picking in the top 10 every year because that's where the Giants have been. We're always picking top 10, but look at where that's gotten us. It hasn't turned the franchise around. So picking top 10 next year in order to draft a quarterback is not guaranteed to turn this franchise around anyway. So I would rather win games this year, and if we need to, trade up and mortgage that future and use those future first-round picks. I don't really always understand why fans are so hesitant when looking ahead and using those future first-round picks to trade up and get a quarterback of all things. Because if you do have a franchise quarterback, there's no amount of first-round picks in the world that you would trade to get rid of him. So, Justin Herbert or Tua even, or, any of those guys from that draft class, Joe Burrow, it would take 5 first-round picks to get those guys. So if you got to trade 1 future first-round pick to move up and draft your quarterback, it's all worth it to me in the end. That's what the New York Giants did when they traded for Eli Manning. They traded a future first, and it got us 2 Super Bowls. So I think Giants fans need to be comfortable moving on from draft capital in exchange for a future franchise quarterback. But that's my take on it. And, of course, we'll see what the Giants do in April, and we'll see what they do over the next few weeks as they continue to wait on Aaron Rodgers, but also decide who the other quarterbacks that they bring in are going to be. Don't forget, guys, the Giants do have Tommy DeVito on their roster. He is still there. He is a backup developmental quarterback, so we'll see how that goes. But alas, that's probably going to wrap this one up. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts down below in the comment section. And listen to Apple or Spotify. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. Without further ado, catch you on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.